Hello everyone, welcome to the CuberCast Podcast, where we talk about what's happening in our universe of cubing. I'm Carter Cubes on Twitch and YouTube.
I'm Humble Cuber on Twitch and YouTube.
And I'm Carter Kid on Twitch and YouTube. So in today's episode of the CuberCast Podcast, we are with Dylan, also known as Oxzowachi. He knows a lot of giant algsets and is really fast at events like Megaminx and Square One. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Dylan.
Thank you for having me.
So we have a bunch of questions here for you. So yeah, let's just get into them.
So our first question is, who are you, and what big algsets do you know?
Well, my name is Dylan Baumbach, and I'm a Texas speed cuber. I've been cubing for about 2 years, and yeah, so I really like learning algs, but I also try to balance that with actually being fast at the event. So I've learned Megaminx PLL, and that's 151 algs, and Megaminx OLL, which is 178. And I've also learned like CSP and 2alg PBL for Square One, and a little bit of ZBLL.
I didn't know you were cubing for just 2 years. I thought you were cubing for a lot, like 5 years. But to learn all of that in just 2 years is insane. And most of that was done in like the past year, right?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it was.
I've been cubing for like 4 years, and I've learned about a total of maybe 200 algorithms across all my events. I can't imagine learning that much in only 2 years.
I've been cubing for about a year, and I literally only know maybe 100 or so, 100, like 20 algs, which is still pretty good, but yeah, that's amazing.
Exactly. Like,
Thank you.
I think I've been cubing. I started cubing in like 2019, so Dylan probably also did too. So we've been cubing for around the same time. He knows 2 look last layer on Megaminx. I don't even know 4 look last layer. So that's just insane.
All right. So moving on to the next question, how was the pasta?
The pasta from my 200th video Minecraft Redstone tutorial special was actually pretty good. I remember vaguely what it was. I think it was like chicken pesto with like bow tie pasta, and it's really good. And I ate way too much of it. And I ate a lot of it. And on my I was like I was trying to record that entire tutorial in like one take, and I had to do it 7 times. And eventually I just started talking about pasta to entertain myself. So
7 times. Now that is commitment. Wow. Thank you for that answer. We were all waiting for the answer to the pasta question. And our next question is, how did you make your name? Like, when people look at your name, they're very confused. I was definitely very confused. So how did you make it?
I think it probably started when my aunt gave me a book about cryptography, which is like kind of like secret codes where you basically transform words so that most people can't understand them. And so what I did, I was really into secret codes and stuff. So one day before class in like 3rd or 4th grade, I think, I like wrote my last name on a piece of paper, bound back, and I did like 12 ciphers on it. So some of them were from the book that I had been given, and some of them I just like kind of made up. And eventually I came up with something very similar to Oxzowachi. I think it was like Oxzowach. And so I just added the I on for some reason. And that's been my name ever since.
Most people like use a random name generator or first initial, second initial cuber. But a cipher, I've never heard of that before. That's cool.
Yeah, they're pretty fun.
Definitely interesting.
All right, so our next question is, what was the hardest algset?
I would probably have to go with Square One CSP. I think some people wouldn't really consider an algset, but it was like 3 hard months of really trying to wrap my brain around the concepts. Especially with all the counting positions, I had some problems with those, and sometimes I made up my own, so I had to figure out like CSP for those. And yeah, it was really hard, and I wasn't used to having to work that hard to understand or learn something like that. So that was a pretty big challenge and probably the hardest one I've done, but it was worth it.
CSP, I'm really inconsistent on Square One because of parity. And I tried learning CSP in a day, and then I realized how absurd that was. Then I tried a week, and then I gave up after like 2 hours. So yeah, CSP takes a serious amount of commitment, but I should probably try taking it up again because, again, my parity execution is terrible.
I think that I know like learning algorithms, it's just like drilling them and like doing all that stuff, but it's sometimes hard to drill algs, especially if you're working on cube shake algs. It's very it's pretty hard. And yeah, I also know that I think you like try to come up with some of your own sort of intuitive like ways of learning CSP, which
Yeah.
is also very difficult, especially if you just rely on
Mhm.
like learning algorithms.
Next up is, what algsets do you plan on learning in the future?
So I've been asked if I'm gonna like learn full ZBLL, and I my problem with that is that it's a subset of one look glass layer, and that means that I can't really use it every solve unless I were to like switch to ZZ or something. Um, so I'm kind of running out of algsets that I can easily use in every solve, which is really important to me because that's how I reinforce them just by doing solves. So I'm kind of down to two algsets that really make sense for me. One of them is CubeNS. I think that's probably fairly easy to do. Um, well, relatively easy to do. And also I'm kind of been playing around with square one OBL, but I think that's going to be like
Uh-huh.
4 times as hard as CSP. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, I was talking to you earlier about if you were going to learn TCLL or something like that, and you said you're not a big fan of 2x2, and there aren't many other big events besides that. Like, adding on to the 3x3 thing, I guess you could just learn full one look last layer, but that would take years. Pretty sure Jabari knew Rudin was learning it, but I think he stopped. There aren't many other algsets other than from what you've learned. Like, I guess there's different angles of L4E on Pyraminx, but then again, it's
Yep.
Pyraminx. No one really cares. So, just kidding. If there are any Pyr fans, please don't sue me. But yeah, for other outsets going forward, Square One OBL, I think Derpy was trying to do 3-look solves, like cube shape,
He does
OBL,
them.
PBL. But that's just an insane amount of algs.
Yeah.
And combined
Yeah,
with
I just
PBL, he knows optimal PBL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked up OBL because I'm really uncultured when it comes to square one. I honestly don't practice it much. And dang, I have respect for anybody who can learn that on square one.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's just like 2 or
Yeah.
3 people, honestly, that know it.
For those at home who are listening and don't know what OBL is, the second and third step of solving a square one is orienting the corners and orienting the edges. And OBL combines those two, just like PBL combines corner permutation and edge permutation. And OBL stands for orient both layers because you're orienting both the edges and the corners at the same time. And it's a ton of algs. Why did you learn some algsets earlier than other algsets?
I would probably attribute that to, I guess, just the satisfaction I get from using new algs in solves and actually like solving the cube. And another factor is that I feel like I can't spam as fast as a lot of other people, so I've kind of resorted to learning more algs to kind of compensate for that. Um, so on top of that, I also get kind of bored of just grinding solves. I feel like there's always something I can be doing better, and that often turns into just learning algs. And especially for Megaminx PLL, I had a hard time with like EP. I was always really bad at recognizing it. And when I got like RPerm cases, it was like, this has to be such a really easy alg. And I just hated not knowing it. So I decided, I'm going to learn it. And eventually I knew enough that it seemed feasible to learn all of them. And to me, the difference between learning most of them and all of them is really important. So I just decided to finish it.
Our next question is, what events are you grinding right now, and what is your favorite event?
So I think recently I've been switching kind of back to Mega after I learned Sarah's Advanced for Cube and grinded that for a week. So I've been doing Megaminx, refreshing my OLLs after like not using them for months, and of course my PLLs. And I think I've been making some good progress on Megaminx. I'd probably say my favorite event is probably going to be Squan after I get the MGC. It used to be my favorite event, and then I kind of got bored of it because my cube kind of sucked and other factors. But I'd say Square One because it's BBL is really fun and CSP is fun, and I happen to be pretty good at it compared to my other events.
I definitely understand Square One. For Megaminx, I definitely think that trying to like literally still the fact that you've learned all of these OLs and all of these PLLs, that's just amazing. But I'm also like kind of interested to think about like how you sort of refreshed all of those algorithms because that's a lot of algorithms to memorize and you're ought to like forget what those
Yeah.
algorithms are. So yeah.
So for Megaminx, of course, because I learned full OLL and PLL, I can use them every single solve. So theoretically, I can just do solves, and every single solve I'll be retraining some OLL and some PLL. And on top of that, for Megaminx, you can do LSLL, which I do occasionally, and that just cuts down the amount of time per solve, and you just get to focus on last layer more. And going back to what I said, I like to learn algsets that I can use every single solve, and that allows me to really utilize my philosophy about trying to learn a lot of algs and be fast at the same time. So when I grind of an event, I can also be every single solve maintaining my algsets. So that's why I learned algsets like Megaminx PLL and OLL and PBL, CSP. All of those can be used every single solve, which is really important to me. So that's how I maintain, just by grinding.
About a year ago, what was your speed on the events you are really good at now, such as Squan and Megaminx?
Man, so for Square One, a year ago, that's like May of 2020, I would probably say I was averaging about 13 or 14 maybe. And at that time I started learning CSP. And once I got there, I think I averaged about 12 maybe. And then once I got right as I got sub 12, I learned PBL, and that took me all the way to 8.5 about a year later. So actually less than a year later. So yeah, about 14 to 8.5, I'd say. For Mega, I think I averaged probably, and I really don't know, probably like high 40s maybe. So I haven't really improved that much, maybe low 50s. So I'd probably say about 50 to like 46. So not a really big jump. But I did learn OLL, which did kind of take away some of my just grinding time. But I still got some, I guess I got some practice in and improved a bit.
Yeah, so for Megaminx, from what I understand, a lot of what most people do to improve is that they just like grind a ton of solves, which includes me and also Carter Kid too. But I know that you're an alg
Yes.
person, so like I think that it's interesting to see that maybe you somehow improved like just by learning algorithms for Megaminx instead of just like grinding hours and hours like other people do. So in a sense, it's sort of like a shortcut, but it's not really a shortcut either.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Megaminx, you don't just need to know algs like on 2x2. You also need to be really efficient and have good look ahead, which is a big skill to have in cubing as a whole. So, which alg sets would you recommend other people to learn? Because some alg sets are more worth learning than others.
I would definitely say I have like a top 3 that I would recommend to Megaminxers and Squanners. So Megaminx OLL is like, as James McDiarmid said, is like probably going to become standard for a lot of top Mega Minxers in the future, because the algs are just, they're so good and so fast, and the recognition is fairly easy compared to PLL. And on the contrary, I would not recommend PLL for most people, because the algs have, like, there's some really bad alg set or like subsets of it where the recognition and the algs are terrible. But OLL is just like, all the algs are godly. So I would definitely recommend that for anyone like sub 40 or sub 45. And next would be 2alg PBL for Square One. It's fairly easy to learn, not a ton of algorithms, mostly just like intuitive. And since it's 2alg, you just use combinations of easy algs. And that can really cut down on your slices in PBL and just make you more knowledgeable and like more connected to Square One. And I think it really helped me get sub 10, sub 9. And then of course CSP for Square One is just so crucial if you want to be good at Square One. And I think you need that to use 2alg PBL effectively. So for sure, Mega OLL, 2alg PBL, and CSP.
Just recently got sub 1 on Megaminx, and I'm definitely not going to go straight into full PLL after that. I'm probably going to learn some easy OLLs like you told me to. Yeah.
Yeah, I've also just hit sub 1 like I think literally today or like yesterday, and
nice.
yeah. So I'm actually gonna try to take that advice. I'm gonna try to learn. I'm gonna try to finish up actually. I think it's CO. Yeah, CO. So I'm gonna try to finish up that, and then I might work on some OLO after I'm like sub 50 or something. So yeah. So our next question is, how do you maintain your algsets? I know we kind of touched upon this, but I guess now's your time to go full on.
Yeah, I'd probably just say that since I learned alg sets that I can use every solve, I just need to grind, and every single solve I'll be maintaining and refreshing some alg that I've already learned. And of course, I learned some ZBLA. I learned the full U subset, and of course, that comes very rarely. So I just use the trainer. I use a trainer for that, and for Mega, I use LSLL occasionally because the rest of the solve takes up so much compared to last layer that it's not the best way to maintain. But yeah, basically just grinding and some trainers occasionally.
Yeah, those are definitely some interesting ways. They're not like untraditional, like that's literally what everyone else recommends, but apparently it seems to be working and it always has been working, I guess. So yeah.
All right, so for our final question of the segment, is that I don't know. All right, so for our final question,
Just say final question. Just say final question.
All right, so for our final question, what do you think are the best places to learn?
Well, for Mega, OLL, and PLL, there's basically no choice to be made. It's just James's doc, which is going to be in the description, and he has an amazing, and I think it's also actually on like AlgDB or SpeedCubeDB or something, but he also has a Google Sheets with all of his algs, and they're really good. And for PBL, I would just recommend CubeMaster's 2alg PBL playlist. It's basically the only PBL resource on YouTube that's good. And then for CSP, I would recommend something else that's going to be in the description. It's just a Google Sheet, and I prefer learning from the sheet, but CubeMaster also has a playlist on that. It just didn't really work for me, so I prefer the sheet.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like, as we said before, I'm gonna start learning some of the easy OLLs, and the good thing about James's sheet is they're categorized into numbers, and the PLLs are categorized into letters. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you do want to check out these sheets, like Oxzo said before. They will all be in the description below. If you're watching this on Spotify or any platforms other than YouTube, just check out our YouTube video and also our channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel too, and you'll just find that in the YouTube episode.
So let's get on to the Q&A segment of this podcast. So the first question comes from Scuber, and it says, how big of an effect has cubing YouTube had on you guys, and is there a specific YouTuber that sparked your interest in cubing?
I'd say cubing YouTube has inspired me to be faster, seeing the fast people like Felix. And I think probably Max Park would be the person that sparked my interest most in cubing.
I agree. Seeing all these fast people on YouTube has really inspired me. As you said, Max Park. It's really inspiring to see how somebody who has autism like him go beyond what most people can do, what pretty much everyone in the world cannot do. He achieves sub 2 minutes on 7x7 and like sub 30 on 5x5. It's just insane. And cubing YouTube is the reason I'm here. I'm a YouTuber, if that's what you want to call it. But yeah, YouTube cubing. Although our first episode is how YouTube cubing is declining, it's still a great place despite it declining.
Yeah, it's true, unfortunately, but the good things are really what matters in the end. Yeah, cubing YouTube has definitely had a huge impact on my life, like not just like cubing life, but like my whole life in general. It's like told me to open up, to listen to people, like to actually communicate with your viewers. My like biggest idols, I guess, are Derpy Cuber because he just creates like a lot of skit-based content. Like when I saw his videos, I'm like, maybe I can sort of like not copy but recreate it, like just make like a funny sort of video content, and that's literally what I do. That's basically what I do now. And also JPerm too, because he just inspired me to be fast. He has a lot of good tutorials. So yeah, that's basically it.
So the specific YouTuber that sparked my interest in cubing was probably JR Cuber. It was really nice to see that amazing quality in his videos that I really liked in all of his reviews. So you can see that I'm trying to do much more reviews on my channel recently. So JR Cuber was definitely somebody who inspired me to start my channel. Next question from our Q&A segment. The Carrot Master asked, Which event do you have the most fun practicing with, and which is the most annoying to practice?
Well, I'd say that the event I have the most fun practicing is the one I do the most. So that's right now Megaminx, but it changes every once in a while. And I'd say right now the most annoying event to practice for me is Pyraminx, but I think that's largely just because my Pyraminx sucks and I don't know how to fix it, so I hate turning it. And yeah,
I think that my favorite event is Megaminx by far. At least the event I have the most fun with because it's really just when a matter of improving. It's just grinding and it's knowing like just to do a bunch of easy stuff that literally anyone can catch on. So yeah, the most annoying one to practice is clock because like Stanley Chapel said, clock is rough. I get if I get a DNF, that kind of just like kills my whole entire mood, especially if like a PB was in there. Like that's happened way too many times, more times than I can count. So, yeah.
All right, time for my super unpopular opinion. Personally, I know basically nobody else thinks this way, but clock is actually my favorite event to practice. I just think it's super fun because honestly, I am not a fan of learning algs. I do like TPS based events, but even though clock is my favorite and it is a TPS based event, my least favorite, actually there's three. My least favorites are the other three TPS based events: Pyraminx, Scube, and 2x2. Pyraminx and Scube, the turning style is just different, and I'm not a huge fan with that. I know clock has a different turning style as well. In 2x2, I find it annoying. It's just super quick, like 2-3 second solves of just doing a single algorithm.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything everybody has been saying. Like, my least favorite events are definitely Clock, Pyraminx, Scube, and Square One. Now, that's a lot of events, but I have different reasons for all of them. For Clock, it's my high DNF rate. I've DNF'd several PBs before, and it's fun when I get good solves, but when I don't, it's not that fun. Scube and Pura, my turning is garbage. For Scube, I can't do sledges that well. I don't do Polish finger tricks. And for Pura, I can't do tips very well. And on scrambles where every tip is not solved, it's pretty difficult for me. And for Square One, I get parity like half the time. I think that's how it works. But yeah, and I'm really bad with parity, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. And yeah, my favorite events to practice are Megaminx and 3x3. 3x3, I have like 47,000 CS timer solves, and that was just in the past year. And Megaminx, I've been grinding it a lot, and I've gotten sub 1, and I can't wait to go past more barriers. The last question is, what is your opinion about all of the very young speedcubers from China, like 7 years old guy who got a mid-6 average? And this is referring to Ruihang Xu and Yihang Wang. Those are the two most dominant names that I've heard thrown around.
I think it's amazing. I think they're going to be like the future of cubing, and they're really pushing the boundaries, especially since they're so young. They have so much to go, and I think it's amazing to watch them. And they also have a lot more potential for high TPS compared to older cubers. So like Ruihang just has insane TPS, and I think that's really interesting. Something they generally bring to the table.
Yeah, so I'm actually really happy for these kids because they're kind of like hitting new heights just at also a very young age and kind of like putting the whole cubing world in sort of a shock. The only thing that I'm kind of sad about, which I think it's just my personal opinion, is that if these guys get the world record average, then that's going to be officially the end of the Felix era, since Felix will hold 0 world records after the fear-free world record average. So yeah, that's going to be very sad, but also very happy at the same time.
So I'm actually really happy about what's going on with this right now. I think what's kind of going to happen is what happened with Felix and Max. These relatively younger kids come into the cubing scene, and they absolutely raise the bar by so much, because if they start super young, and if they're this good at this young age, by the time they get older, about the average age of a cuber, which I would say is about like teenage years. So when they get there, the bar will be raised by them so much, they'll just be amazing because they started at such a young age.
Yeah, I agree. Like Ruihang, he got a 3x3 world best single on cam. He beat Ben Barron's 2.83 on cam. My bad, 2.87 on cam. And he got a 2.68 single just insane. His TPS is insane. He has the ASR average of 5.69. He's definitely going to get world record in the future. The ASR average was actually really consistent, so I can definitely see him getting a world record. And Yihang Wang, he has a 4.86 official 3x3 solve, which is insane. I have no words. I think I should just quit cubing because these people who are like 7 years old and 12 years old, people that are younger than me that are getting times half of what my times are. I average like 9 on 3x3, and these people are getting 4s and 5s. It's just insane. I think these kids are the future, and I can't wait to see what world records they get. But yeah, it's also going to be a bit sad when the Felix era is over.
So, thank you, Oxzowachi, for coming on to the podcast. It's been a joy talking to you here today. And yeah, I think that just about wraps it up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
All right, thank you for listening to today's episode of the CuberCast Podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, Spotify, follow, any other platform that we're on. We're on a ton at this point. Make sure to do whatever. Make sure to subscribe or follow on any of those, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.